This video is proudly sponsored by DigimonCard.io for all your Digimon card, deck building, deck list, card pricing, and discussion needs.
Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we have a top 16 breakdown for the Zulu Games pre-regionals that I hosted with them this past week, pretty much last night essentially, and it was a 64 player event. It was on webcam, and we got these top 16 deck lists for you today. And real quick, I do want to say thank you to DigiPanda for also being my co-commentator for this event. Make sure to check him out, as well as Ryan for being my head judge for the event. I did stream it on Twitch. It is linked in this webpage on Eggman Events, which you guys should already be checking out anyways, as well as in the description of this video. And also it will be re-uploaded to YouTube within 7 days, so you can watch it on here on YouTube as well. But going on into this breakdown again, we are trying to get ready for this BT12 regional seasons, which kicks off this upcoming weekend with the core TCG webcam regionals. And looking at this breakdown, there's a lot of, I'd say, the usual suspects. Nothing too crazy from this event, I'd say. 5 hunters in the top 16, but only 1 in the top 8, which is kind of interesting. 4 Beelzemon X, which then get 1 in the top 4, and then kind of like, even though I would say like Hunter and Beelzemon X are both kind of like the most popular archetypes, at least from BT12 itself, it's not. It's great. It is working very hard, but again, most of the players on it are not in the the top half of the top 16, and more so it's just I would have to say like it's mostly just the amount of people on the list in the first place kind of contribute to it doing as well as it does, if that makes sense. So like statistically, it's hard for this deck to do wrong, do bad or poorly when then there's just so many people on it as well. We also did have 3 copies of Black WarGreymon X, with 2 of them on the red base, 1 on the black base, 1 copy of Crossheart, which ended up winning the event, 1 WarGreymon, 1 Blue Flare, and a security control as well. So we're going to go over the top placing list for each one of these archetypes. And I do also want to mention, I was going to do top 8, and then people wanted me to do top 16, and only 1 new archetype came out of it, which was a security control list. Other than that, the top 8 and top 16 had the same archetypes with just different ratios, which I thought was at least interesting enough to mention. But anyways, going on into our top 16 breakdown with our first place list, this is Michael's first place Crossheart, and not a lot of new tech from this deck compared to what we've been seeing in the last couple of weeks of BT11. This is obviously the Merva build for it, and we did get like 1 new support card. We never saw it on the screen, but it is the Jet Mervamon here too. So it has Armor Purge. You can Digicross it or Digivolve it on top of it too. And when Digivolving, you may place 1 Digimon card with Crossheart and its trait from your hands or from one of your tamers as the bottom devolution cards. Then if this has Sparrowmon in its devolution cards until the end of your opponent's turn, all your Digimon game blocker and can't be returned to your hand or decks. And also all turns once per turn, when one of your other Digimon is deleted, you get to unsuspend this Digimon. So being able to block, and then you can use something else as a blocker and then restand this. Like it's a neat little tool, especially since you can use on top of Merva. So if you go wide, you can do some stuff, and the prevention of being returned to hand or deck I think is great too. So I think the prevention from being deleted would probably be a little bit better, but still a really good tool there. And also an interesting kind of thing that I've noticed too is generally like the tamer layout is a little bit different than I'm used to. Normally it's just like a 4 Taiki, 4 of the Zakary, and 4 of the Zenjiro, but ended up putting 2 copies of Taiki, or at least the triple tamer, which I can see is important for the idea of just having, being able to use the sources underneath your tamers to go into your cross effects. So that's probably my understanding for there. The only issue is that you're really, really tempted to run 4 copies of Zakary, especially since sometimes you do need that yellow source for Blinding Ray. But other than that, I think it's fine. I do like the Star Sword, and it did attack for game for one of the games. So there is, I think, an idea to maybe run 2 copies of this too, in case, just as another way to get red and yellow as be online for those colors. I think it can be very helpful for that as well. So anyways, that is my thoughts there for Mike. Congratulations for their first place finish on this event. And I don't think Crosshair's really going anywhere, and it's definitely I don't think it's as consistent as something as like Beelzemon, but I do think it's still very, very fast. And if you're able to sack a couple copies of Blinding Ray and Gravity Crush, I think you can pull at a lot of wins a lot of the time. A lot of people aren't running the memory blockers right now. That means that you're kind of free reign to run these event or extra cards too. So anyways, congrats to Michael again on their finish there. Next up we have Andy with their second place WarGreymon, and specifically this is WarGreymon, not the black WarGreymon version. It's not even WarGreymon X. It's just kind of like the more of the new package. You do have a couple of the new tools, but there's no X antibody. There's no cool boy in this build. It's kind of just a very kind of aggressive deck in that way. You will see that the top end is 2 copies of BT1 WarGreymon, which does ignore the option cards from going off. Then also 4 copies of the new WarGreymon with the raid effect, which essentially lets you get dual attack. And then also by being able to use the Metal Greymon with the inheritable, you are able to use the effect to get piercing. So being able to essentially get like a bunch of checks with piercing and everything else, I think is very strong for this deck too. You get your ties, you get to play them for free. You have 2 copies of Hades Force because it's a really good card. 2 Delicate Plans because I think he was very worried about option cards triggering in that security, which Beelzemon I think is a deck that does have a lot of those, potentially happening. 2 Red Mem Boost, and then kind of the regular 4 Augus with, 8 Augus with 4 X antibody versions, and then also running the Greymon X antibody, the other 2 Greymon. Honestly, like I think this is still generically better for the deck since this offers no protection for you with this build, since you aren't running X antibodies and you're not needing it. This just generally has better protection, but it does kind of go for a cost reduction level up, which is important, and sometimes too just having enough time for it, and not running any of the BT8 Metal Greymons, but are running a 4/4 split between the Metal Greymon X antibody and this one, and then also 3 of the security attack +1. So this one's very aggressive. You're able to get a lot of damage in sometimes, and again with the double attack with WarGreymon that you get to do with all these extra security attack you get to have is it can be a good like final punch in a lot of ways. So anyways, this is Andy's list, and congratulations on their second place finish here. Next up we have Sergiy Cicero with their third place Beelzemon X, and he's been playing this list for a long time. If you've been checking out any of the other events, for at least for BT12, most of them are just the Gaia Force gaming events right now, but he's been using this deck for great success for a long time, and going X1, or he went 5-1 in this event. And again, this is a really long event. It was, I would argue to say, too long of an event to have maybe on a weekday, but he was grinding out. He went into the finals, went 5-1 for this event, and just has a real mastery of how this deck works. Their own kind of choices for deck building. You'll see there's a lot of particular 1s and 2s, which is great, and again very very strong. The cards I would say are particularly strong as one. Rival's Barrage is just a stupidly good card. Cert, you do need to hit the delay when you use it off the trashing off the deck, but the fact that you're able to just get literally any card in your trash, which by the time you want to start proccing these is most cards that are in your deck, which is great, which is, I don't know, just very, very strong. I am surprised only 1 copy of the Blast Mode, since it is sometimes your OTK finisher, but again, when you're going through so many cards in your deck and your trash, these can just find them very, very easily there. 3 copies of Ayamaka, which again is a really particular number. A lot of people play this at 4 because it does kind of steamroll you some games sometimes. You get a lot of value from this one as well. And then I think it's understood that these 2 Impmons are the best ones there, especially with the X antibody Digivolve. On top of this, being able to go into a Beelzemon is fantastic. And just again, very particular with your list, with your ratios. And this deck is very strong. You're going to see a lot of this deck in general. I will say this is definitely a deck that you can't just pick up and play and decide to be good. There's a lot of timing, triggers, and also just the sequencing that you're doing for this deck that makes it, you can definitely see an okay player to a great player with this deck, just with all that sequencing and decision making going on. So anyways, congratulations to Sergiy for their 3rd place finish. And I don't think there's going to be any lack of him playing this deck in the next couple weeks. So anyways, congrats again there. Next up we have Zakary with their 4th place Blue Flare. Zakary's been a pretty regular to our tournaments here too, and Blue Flare still has some fangs in it. I think that it does have some good matchups too. The fact that I think Beelzemon sometimes can't help but go wide on the board means that this deck can get a lot of value, which also means that this deck can sometimes just go off and be very, very quick a lot of the times. I think Hunters generally have a lot of cards on the board, or sometimes just happen to have that, and like Crossheart, just a lot of decks are kind of in that spot. I will say like probably Black WarGreymon can kind of have a single stack at sometimes and play around it, but there are a bunch of decks that just can't help but play around from this deck, which means that you have a lot of advantage and you can get a lot of stunning and just be very aggressive if you need to be. So we've been seeing this deck a lot. I don't think there's any new cards specifically from BT12, but I don't think they need them right now. Build is still solid, and congratulations to Zackery for their finish there. Next up, we have our 2 Black WarGreymon. So this is Chandra's 5th place Black WarGreyX, and they use the red Digi-Egg package on this one. And I think like this is pretty standard for what we've been seeing. The only new add is the tie from BT12, as well as kind of the new chain. So, obviously Greymon is probably it is definitely, I'm not going to argue, it's the most represented archetype in this game. There's just so many Greymons, there's so many different ways to build your lines, and being able to get some new tools, including the BT12 Agumon as well as BT12 Greymon, to get some more consistency, as well as to be able to potentially get some extra value from like your ties and stuff, I think is very, very handy for a list like this. Hades Force is still a great card. There's Tamer removal does wreck stuff like Crossheart and Hunter, which are both very prevalent in the meta right now, in my opinion. And it's just this can get rid of a lot of things. I saw it in this tournament. A Hades Force was hit by why can't I remember the name? A Quartzmon, and if this was in hand, you wouldn't be able to delete it with what was on board, but the security effect just pretty much won you the game. It's very strong in that way. So I think this deck is still, even though it's neutered a little bit with the Greymon X antibody to 1, still has a lot for you. And also, like the 1 weight 60%, it does kind of get around the fact that you don't have the reduction that you normally get, which is, again, pretty handy there too. The only thing is that you have to proactively pay the 2 to get the 4 reduction, which means that sometimes it doesn't work out as well, but it's a good handy card. I do like the creativity for it too. So anyways, this is Chandra's 5th place list. And next up we have Kyle with his Black WarGreymon 6th place list that he used with the black base. And I've been theory crafting this a little bit. Again, I think this deck does definitely get hit hard by the fact that Greymon X antibody is at 1, in the fact that not necessarily even like the reduction for it, but there aren't just generically a lot of good black Greymons outright. Like the Greymon from BT8 is fine. The BT2 Greymon is cute, but just the fact like you really want this one, and the fact that you can't as easily use the Greymon X antibody, you still run it, but the fact that it has to be on top of a red Agumon, which means that most of your low end can't digivolve on top of it, which kind of stinks and kind of hurts you a little bit on that side. But I do like the Agumon X antibody is very strong in this one. One play on digivolving, reveal top 3 Greymon or X antibody for your hand, and a black Tamer, which is really nice. Then also the inheritable is when this Digimon would be with the Greymon or Omnimon, its name would be deleted, returned to your hand or deck by effect. You can place 1 X antibody from the Digimon's evolution card. So it's pretty much the same as the Greymon X antibody protection. So just very good protection for you. And since you don't have this inheritable as much anymore, since this is at 1, you can definitely use this to kind of mitigate that in a lot of ways. So and then you have to run this Agumon because it's a black Agumon, even though it's not great. This one's pretty okay just because of the effect. It just works for your curve, and obviously you play the BT12 one. So I like the deck and like the idea of using different pieces to go up the same lines and maybe be more defensive with it. Tie is also great with this one too, so being able to play it for free, especially since you can search it for free off an Agumon X, is great. So you can have an Agumon, digivolve an Agumon X, you get to find your tie, and then you can use a Greymon to play your tie for free. So that's kind of like a nice little value train. So I'm not sure if it's worth just running black in general, but you don't really care for much of the color identity other than that. You can't run like a red memory boost, which you can run in this one, but this one, since having a red or black isn't as guaranteed, and a lot of your cards, you could probably run like a black mem boost and be okay with it if you wanted to, but I also see like not doing it. Also, no cool boy for this one, and no 2 copies of it in this one. It's definitely not as powerful as it used to be, and probably because this card's at 1. If this was at 4, I think cool boy would be more represented, but it's not, and so it's not. Anyways, that is Kyle's list there, and congratulations for their finish. We got 2 more to finish off the night. We have Antonio's 8th place Hunter list, and Hunter, I really do like Hunter. I really do, which is shame to say in the fact that there's not a lot of deck building choices you get to have in this deck. Most of the deck and most of the cards are pretty understood on your ratios and which cards you run and which cards you use. I do like running the BT10U. I think there's a neat little tech for it. It's technically, you know, one of these tamers, and it's like another copy of a purple tamer in a lot of ways. So it doesn't have the hunter archetype too, which is important because some cards do try to find tamers with hunters on it. But you know, all turns, once a turn, when a purple Digimon card is placed underneath this tamer, you get to draw one and gain a memory. So if you're able to, like, and this just works like if you have a card that's you know, deleted on your opponent's turn, you have to save, you can gain memory back and kind of memory choke them on their turn, which has always been a very strong effect. The your turn once per turn doesn't come up in this build, but just the fact that it's all turns once per turn, so it can be either player's turn, and that flexibility is really great for you there. It's only purple Digimon, so it's only the Gumdramon, Psychmon, and the Arrestramons, but I do think that's a nice little tech for the deck in general too. So I don't have much more to say about this one. It is another U, which means you do have. I do think putting this in 2 means that you put 3 of each of the other ones, which means that like there's enough U's for you to find, and then also you don't need as many of the purple tamer to have like your different colors for it. But I've been seeing this pop up a little bit more, and I think it's a cute tech, and I need to try it out a little bit more myself. So. Anyways, I think that is it for this one. Congratulations to Antonio for the finish. Hunters, again, I think is very strong. I also like, it's like BLZ, where it's a very kind of understood. I'd say it's not as much creative deck building as BLZ. I think you have more room for that one. But I do think that this deck specifically does have some deck building choices, and it also has a lot of play making choices too. So the way you play this deck, the way you make your decisions, where you put everything, sometimes it can look like a little bit of solitaire, but there's a lot of thinking, and the fact that you get to kind of choose your own path, I think, is very strong. So anyways, congratulations to Antonio there. And to wrap it up, we have Williams 15th place security control. And again, this is the only deck you got from at least from these style of videos, from going from a top 8 to a top 16. And this one's a weirdo. There's a really interesting build for security control, and it just kind of reminds me of kind of like older like Mega Zoo ideas, like with just the fact like we have Chromon, and also we have Craniumon, which we're just hard casting for 13, I suppose, which is really interesting. We have like Rylesleymon, which recovery +2, which is really interesting. And additionally, it's just a really, really interesting build with all this. And so we're playing like 1 DG Dimension. We have a couple of black tamers. We have Daigo, which just has all turns when your opponent's Digimon becomes unsuspended during a main phase. You get to suspend this tamer to gain a mem. So like that happens sometimes, I suppose. I don't know if it's worth just running this one tamer, but it seemed to have worked out a little bit. You have a lot of like the generic of like the purple yellow stuff, and you have like an Izzy, which I mean might go off like very rarely, but could go off, but probably in the sense that you're setting up your security, which then if you have like a reinforcing memory boost or Holy Wave, you can make sure you know what you get to put in that security, which is nice. And then you have like a single Quartzmon, which can Digivolve on top of the Craniumon. It's a really interesting pile of cards on this one. So I'm not going to pretend to have like 100% of the insight for it, but it's a really interesting list, and congratulations to William for that 15th place finish. But that is going to be the video for me today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you do appreciate these tournaments. Again, it will be re-uploaded to my YouTube. We will have more events in the future, and if you want to see these more events, make sure to check out my community event page, which I will be updating in the future. So we do have like a Dragon Ball Super tournament and a One Piece tournament. These are just the ones I have already in May. We're going to be posting more. Check out the Discord and stuff, but that's going to be it for me. And again, thank you guys so much for watching. I do appreciate it, and I'll catch you all next time.